Hello, Shadrach here. Tier sets for Season 3 of The War Within were just announced, and I wanted to quickly make a video going over those and kind of comparing it to current logs for just how insane these are. So, the new tier sets, instead of being for Havoc and for Vengeance, are actually for each hero talent set. This means there's the same total amount of class sets in the game, but every spec has access to two instead of only one. So, we have an Aldrachi Reaver and a Fel Scarred Tier set. Just going to go through and quickly read what we have, and these are very powerful. So for Aldrachi Reaver, we have Reaver's glaive damage is increased by 60%, and other physical only damage is increased by 30%. This is going to be things like Fury of the Aldrachi, Throw Glaive itself. And because these are all getting buffed, that's also going to buff our Wounded Quarry damage, which is funneled off of that, and Soul Scar as well from Reaver's Glaive and Throw Glaives, even though that scales off of Chaos or off of our mastery because it is chaos, it's based off the initial hit as well, so that's also going to go higher. The four piece, at least as it reads, the way that it works seems to be that Fury of the Eldrachi, um, instead of being empowered from 3 slashes to 6, if it's used with Blade Dance after a Chaos Strike, it's going from 3 to 12. That is an insane jump, doubling the amount of Fury of the Eldrachi hits, and we also have the 30% physical only damage buff on it. So, in a situation where you only use Blade Dance after Chaos Strike, not only is it getting doubled, it's then getting increased by 30%. That's going to be 160% more damage than it deals now. So, going to 2.6 times damage. And that counts into our funnel as well. So if I were to go in and look at a dungeon like Cinderbrew Meadery, imagine that this Fury of the Eldrachi being 10% of my overall did 2.6 times this amount of damage. Same with Throw Glaive would go up 30%, Reaver's Glaive would go up 60%. Our Wounded Quarry damage, going from the current 8.8, this is going to essentially double. And we do a lot of funnel with this. This could cause some serious problems with threat issues on a single target. Being Night Elf is definitely going to be necessary unless the tank tier sets are just as disgusting. And you can go look at some specific windows where the amount of funnel damage that's happening here is already insane. You can see Wounded Quarry ticks where they're ticking for, right here I have a 12 million tick. Here, this is a 15 million tick. And if I go in and look at that tick itself, where it did 15 million damage, you can look at the damage that I dealt here. And my damage done right before that is going to be a lot of damage from Fury of the Eldrachi. And that's all that this was. So you could multiply this by 2.6, and this 20 million damage would go up to about 52 million damage, and this Wounded Quarry tick would go from 15 million to something closer to like 35 million damage. This tier set's absolutely insane, but so is the Fel Scarred set. As for Fel Scarred, actually I didn't quite finish on the Aldrachi set. I don't think we'll ever use it, but if you do Chaos Strike after a Blade Dance, it does empower Reaver's Mark. It stacks up to 2 times. It already stacks up to 2, so I think they mean it's going to stack up to 2 additional times, or stack 2 times over the initial amount. So it'll either go to 3 or 4 stacks. Based on how this sounds like it works, I think it will go to 3 stacks because it applies an additional stack for 100% of normal duration. So instead of going with a 2 stack for 12% damage increase, it's going to be a 3 stack for 18%, is how I understand this. And if that's the case, you will always want to Blade Dance after Chaos Strike anyway. Which honestly, I think even if this were to go to 4 stacks, you'd still Blade Dance after Chaos Strike no matter what. This is just such a significant amount of physical damage that it's going to turn into a lot of Wounded Quarry damage. Again, incredibly powerful. Next, moving on to Fel Scarred. For Fel Scarred, Immolation Aura just deals 30% increased damage, and while you have Immolation Aura active, Chaos Strike also deals 30% increased damage. In single target scenarios, I think this would mean that we would play a Fire Inside, and we would try to extend out Immolation Auras to have them up as much as we can, just near 100% uptime on the buff would be the goal, and you're gonna have a decent bit of RNG because of that. As for the 4-piece, it now immediately induces a Demon Surge. This means Demon Surge will gain an extra stack as well, so you'll be doing 10% more damage on your regular Demon Surges because you'll have an extra stack. Um, and this is on every single I-Beam and Metamorphosis. As well as that, entering Demon form also is going to give you a Demon Soul Fragment. That gives you 20% bonus damage for 10 seconds. That is a 50% uptime alone off of just I-Beam. What we don't know for sure is it says entering Demon form. We have cases of both recasting I-Beam in demon form, it either will or won't proc something. So until we see the implementation, we don't know if you're going to continue getting these souls when you press meta and I-Beam after a previous I-Beam, or if you only get the one when you first enter demon form. That will heavily change the performance of this, especially more in single target builds where you'd play Shattered Destiny and you would have a longer demon form. Although, if it didn't work that way, you just wouldn't play it. But both these tier sets look incredibly good, and just to go look at some logs for what 30% more immolation aura damage can do, that also means Ragefire goes up 30%, and it is a third of my damage in keys. So you can think of that outright as like 10% DPS just from the 30% damage to immolation aura. Then you have the 30% increase to Chaos Strike, which will also affect Annihilation, and while Annihilation and Chaos Strike themselves aren't that high, about 7%, with a really high uptime on Amora, we can assume probably about a 20% damage buff to those, which isn't much. It's about 1.4%, but a large portion of Burning Blades is also from that, so it's probably a bit more like 2 to 2.5%, and this is in a key setting. The additional Demon Surge proc as well is going to turn into a pretty significant amount of damage, and then with the Demon Fragment, you could specifically use your immolation auras where you're using this 20% increased damage on top of it and make immolation aura pretty consistently deal about 50% more damage than it currently does. Again, this is such a massive amount of your damage, and you don't need to buff Ragefire itself. More of the immolation aura window that you would buff with that Demon Soul, that builds into Ragefire. So you don't need to even really consider that. So I'm really happy with these season 3 sets. They look incredibly strong for Havoc. I think Aldrachi probably is going to be the stronger of the two, just because the amount of funnel from this is absolutely obscene. To the point that I honestly expect Wounded Quarry is going to get nerfed in some way because of this tier set, which will be unfortunate. But I don't know how they could possibly balance this while currently tuned this way. Let me know your thoughts on the tier sets in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like or subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate all the support. Have a good one.